Okay, let's dive in. Today we're talking rice. And honestly, forget thinking it's just, well, simple.
Yeah, definitely not simple.
We've been wading through a lot of material articles, research papers, notes, and it paints this picture of a grain that's incredibly complex
Yeah,
and just fundamentally important globally.
it really does. You look through all this stuff, and it's clear rice isn't, just some side dish. It's woven into human history, global economics, even the environment in ways most people probably don't think about day to day.
Totally. So our mission here in this deep dive is to pull out the really key, fascinating takeaways from these sources.
Right.
We want to trace its journey,
Yeah.
from ancient origins, how it actually grows.
Yeah, basics.
It's a massive scale today, the big challenges it's facing, and where science is taking it next.
Think of it as like your essential guide to a crop that literally feeds more than half the planet. It's way more than food. It's civilization almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into it. Let's unpack the world of rice.
Where to start? Maybe the very basics. The plant itself.
Good idea. The foundation. So the plant described in the research, it's pretty impressive. Grows over 1 meter tall usually.
Right.
But get this, it can reach 5 meters in deep water conditions.
Wow.
And it takes what, about 6 months from seed to harvest?
Roughly, yeah. And the structure's interesting, too. You've got these leafy stems, they call them tillers, branching off a main stem that has joints, nodes, and the flowers, they actually self-pollinate. They're grouped in this thing called a panicle.
A panicle.
Yeah, and one panicle can have like up to 350 of these little spikelets. Each one, once fertilized, becomes the grain we eat, the caryopsis.
It's a cereal, right? Part of that big grass family,
Yeah.
Poaceae.
Correct. Very adaptable tropical crop, usually grown as an annual, so replanted every year.
But it can be perennial in some places, that ratoon crop thing.
Exactly. In warm climates, you can get a second harvest from the roots. Yeah, the history. That's where it gets really interesting based on this material. 2 main species we domesticated. Oryza sativa, that's Asian rice, that's the big one. Domesticated in China a long time ago.
How long?
The sources say somewhere between 13,500 and 8,200 years ago. Massive window, but ancient.
Wow. And the other one?
African rice, Oryza glaberrima, domesticated separately over in Africa, maybe around 3,000 years ago.
But the genetics, the molecular stuff,
Yeah.
it suggests something cool about the Asian rice, right?
Yeah, this is a key finding in the research. It looks like O. sativa actually comes from a single domestication event in China.
Just one, not multiple places.
Seems like it. From a wild rice, Oryza rufipogan. And those 2 main types we know, indica and japonica, they share this key gene that stops the grain shattering off the stalk easily. That's like a classic sign of domestication.
So indica, that came later. Maybe somewhere else.
Possibly. The thinking is maybe it developed later, perhaps in India, could have even involved some mixing, hybridization with another wild type, O. navara.
That single origin point, though, that's powerful.
It really is. And from there, boom, it starts spreading across the globe. Humans carried it, trade routes,
Where did it go first?
north into China, Tibet, then Korea, Japan. Southward, Austronesian sailors took it through Southeast Asia, all the way to Madagascar, even Guam.
Incredible reach.
Hit mainland Southeast Asia about 5,000 years ago, and eventually across the Atlantic.
Right. The Columbian Exchange after 1492.
Mm-hmm. And the Spanish even brought African rice over, too.
And here's that wild stat. Before the American War of Independence, rice was the 4th most valuable export from British North America.
Right after tobacco, wheat, and fish. It's amazing how fast it became so economically vital in a totally new continent.
Okay, so that's the history. How about growing it today? What factors matter?
Oh, lots of things. Obviously, the specific variety you plant, but also pests, diseases,
Sure.
the soil type, water availability, temperature, sunlight, biotic and abiotic factors, as they say.
And planting methods. There are different ways.
Yeah, you can do direct seeding, just sow the seeds in the field, less labor, but you tend to need more seed.
Okay.
Or there's transplanting. Grow seedlings in a nursery, then plant them out. More labor, traditionally done by hand all over Asia.
Right, I've seen pictures of that.
But you use less seed overall. And now, of course, you've got mechanized transplanters making inroads.
Water is key, obviously, but it's not like it needs to be flooded all the time. That seems counterintuitive.
Exactly. That's a common misconception. It doesn't thrive if it's continuously submerged for its whole life. Traditional paddy farming does use flooding, and yeah, that takes huge amounts of water.
But there are other ways, right? This alternate wetting and drying.
Yes, AWGD. The research highlights this a lot. Instead of keeping it flooded, you flood to maybe 5 centimeters deep.
Okay.
Then let the water level drop, actually down to 15 centimeters below the soil surface. Then flood again.
And that saves water.
Dramatically. Plus, there are deep water varieties that can handle being flooded over half a meter deep for a month or more. And then there's upland rice, grow more like wheat or corn in hilly areas, just relying on rainfall.
Okay, so it grows, matures, then harvesting. How's that done?
Depends hugely on the scale. Smallholder farms,
Mm-hmm.
often manual labor, sickles, simple tools, large commercial farms, big combine harvesters that do it all. But the basic steps are cutting the stalks that's reaping, maybe stacking them, then separating the grain from the stalk, which is threshing, and finally cleaning the grain.
And drying.
Oh,
That seems critical right after harvest.
absolutely crucial. The grain's still got high moisture, maybe 20–25%. You have to get that down quickly to stop mold growing.
How do they do that?
Traditionally, just spreading it out in the sun on mats or paved areas. Simple but effective if the weather's right.
Then comes milling,
Yeah.
taking off the layers.
Right, if you just take off the tough outer husk, you get brown rice.
Which is more nutritious generally.
Generally, yeah, because the bran and germ are still there. White rice, the bran and germ are milled off, too. That's usually a more complex, multi-step process in commercial mills.
The sources also mentioned parboiling, steaming it before milling.
Yes, parboiling. It involves soaking, steaming, and drying the rice with the husk still on. This makes the starch gelatinized, hardens the grain so it breaks less during milling.
Ah, right.
And importantly, it pushes some vitamins and minerals from the bran layer into the starchy part, the endosperm, so more nutrients are retained even in the white rice after milling.
That makes sense. But even with all this, there are losses after harvest, right?
Right.
Especially in some regions.
Oh, huge losses sometimes, particularly in developing countries. Problems with transport, storage, the milling itself. It all adds up.
Like that Nigeria example,
Yeah.
losing a quarter of the crop.
Yeah, a staggering amount. Compare that to, say, modern metal silos in China, where the loss rate was cited as only 0.2%. Traditional storage in rural China, maybe 7–13% loss. Infrastructure makes a massive difference.
Okay, so we've got the plant, the history, the growing. Let's zoom out. The global scale. It's enormous.
It really is. Primary staple food for, over half the world's population, dominant in Asia, growing fast in Africa. Production in 2023 hit 800 million tons.
800 million. That makes it number 3 globally, right? Behind sugarcane and maize.
That's correct. And production is super concentrated. China and India, together, they produce over half the world's rice.
Just those two.
Yep, 207 million tons each in 2023. Add in Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam. I see why Asia accounts for like 90% of all rice grown.
What about yields? How much rice could you get from an area?
The world average in 2022 was around 4.7 tons per hectare, but the potential is way higher. The research mentions Yuan Longking in China.
The father of hybrid rice.
Right. He hit a record back in '99, apparently, of 17.1 tons per hectare. Using hybrid varieties and this special approach called the System of Rice Intensification, SRI, shows what's possible.
But here's the weird thing, the paradox you mentioned. Only a tiny fraction gets traded internationally.
Yeah, less than 8%. It seems crazy for such a massive crop, but most rice is eaten in the country where it's grown. It's a domestic food security crop, first and foremost.
Unlike wheat or corn, which are huge global commodities.
Exactly. And interestingly, in the trade that does happen, developing countries are the main players. China actually became the world's biggest importer around 2013.
Really? Even producing so much?
Yep. And India became the biggest exporter around 2012, along with Thailand and Vietnam as other major exporters.
Who's eating the most per person?
Top consumers are China, India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, but there's this trend. In the 21st century, per capita consumption is actually falling in many places.
Why is that?
Often linked to rising incomes. People start eating more meat, more diverse diets.
But not everywhere, right? Africa?
Sub-Saharan Africa is the big exception.
Yeah.
There, both the population and the amount of rice each person eats are going up, so rice is becoming even more critical for food security there.
Okay, let's shift focus again to the plate, the food itself.
The fun part
Yeah.
and the variety is just incredible.
Usually classified by grain length, yeah.
Yeah.
Long, medium, short.
That's the main way. And that length, combined with the type of starch inside amylose versus amylopectin, dictates how it cooks up.
So long grain, like basmati.
Right. Long grain, mostly indica types. They tend to stay separate, cook up dry and fluffy. Basmati and jasmine are famous examples. Great aroma and nutty flavors. Jasmine's maybe a Bit stickier than basmati.
Medium grain, that's more for risotto.
Often, yeah. Medium grain, often japonica or sometimes hybrids. They're moister, more tender, tend to clump together a bit. Calrose is a big one in the U.S., and carnaroli, the Italians call it the king for risotto.
And short grain, sticky rice.
Exactly. Short grain, mostly japonica. Small oval grains, very sticky when cooked, perfect for sushi, obviously, holds together. You also get specific glutinous or sticky rice for things like mochi.
What about arborio for risotto?
Arborio is technically medium grain, but yeah, it acts sticky like short grain because it's high in amylopectin. And bamba for paella. That one's actually an indica, believe it or not, but it absorbs liquid like crazy, so it works well.
And those colorful lines, black rice.
Ah, forbidden rice. That deep purple-black color comes from anthocyanins, the same antioxidants in blueberries. Cool story about it being reserved for Chinese royalty.
Okay, nutrition. Big one. It's gluten-free, right?
Absolutely zero gluten, which makes it fundamental for anyone with celiac disease or gluten sensitivities, a true staple.
What about the basic nutritional profile? Cooked white rice.
Per 100 grams, you're looking at about 130 calories, mostly carbs around 29%, proteins low, maybe 2%, and fat is negligible.
In vitamins, minerals?
It's got a decent amount of manganese, like 18% of your daily value, but other micronutrients are pretty low in standard white rice.
And protein quality, it's not complete.
Correct. It has protein, and because people eat so much of it, it's a significant source globally. But it doesn't have enough of all the essential amino acids your body can't make itself.
Which is why fortification is recommended sometimes.
Exactly. The World Health Organization strongly recommends adding iron and conditionally suggests adding vitamin A and folic acid, especially in places where rice is the main food and deficiencies are common.
Okay, so it feeds billions, but growing it isn't easy. Let's talk challenges. Pests, climate.
Yeah, the tough stuff.
Yeah.
The research lists a whole rogues gallery. Insects like armyworms, plant hoppers, rodents, birds, weeds competing for resources, fungal diseases, bacteria, viruses, they can all slash yields.
Any standout diseases? The worst offenders?
Two are mentioned as perennially the worst globally. Rice blast, which is a fungus, Magnaporth griseae, and bacterial leaf streak, Xanthomonas oryzae. Major headaches for farmers everywhere. Sheath blight is another big one.
How do you fight back sustainably?
The material talks about integrated approaches, using biodiversity, breeding resistant rice varieties, understanding the plant's own defenses.
And pesticides, are they always the answer?
Well, here's a really interesting point from the sources. Often, farmers use more pesticides than they actually need.
More than needed.
Yeah, and sometimes it backfires. They call it the pesticide paradox. Spraying can actually increase certain pests, like the brown plant hopper.
Wait, spraying more leads to more pests.
It sounds crazy, right? But the pesticides often kill the beneficial insects, the predators that would normally eat the pests.
Ah, the natural enemies.
Exactly. Plus, some studies suggest certain pesticides might even stimulate pest reproduction or weaken the rice plant's own defenses. IRI did a famous demonstration showing that cutting way back on pesticides actually reduced pest problems.
That's, wow, completely counterintuitive.
It really challenges the spray everything mindset, and it makes traditional practices look smarter.
Like raising ducks and fish in the paddy.
Yes, that's mentioned as a great example of polyculture in Asia. The ducks and fish eat pests and weeds, their manure fertilizes the rice, plus you get extra food, fish and duck eggs or meat. It's a whole system.
And the plant fights back too.
It does. It produces its own defensive chemicals. Interestingly, some things we add, like the herbicide 2,4-D, can apparently boost the plant's defenses against certain pests. But other chemicals, like the insecticide imidacloprid, might actually make it more vulnerable.
Complex interaction.
Very. And of course, breeding for resistance is huge. Using traditional methods and genetic engineering, looking for useful genes, even in wild rice relatives.
Okay, shifting from pests to the really big one. Climate change. Rice farming contributes, but it's also vulnerable, right?
Both sides of the coin, yeah. Contribution first. Rice cultivation was estimated to be about 1.2% of total global greenhouse gas emissions in 2022.
That sounds small, but in agriculture.
It's significant. Almost half of all cropland emissions, about 30% of agricultural methane, maybe 11% of agricultural nitrous oxide.
And methane is the big one from rice because of the flooding.
Exactly. Those flooded, waterlogged soils become anaerobic, no oxygen. Microbes break down organic matter and release methane as a byproduct. Lots of it.
So what can be done?
Mitigation strategies are being developed. using different varieties, managing water better, like that alternate wetting and drying again,
AWD, right.
removing straw after harvest instead of letting it decompose in the field. AWD is really promising. Studies show it can cut methane emissions by up to 90%.
90%. And you said yields can even go up sometimes.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive to stress the plant slightly by letting it dry, but it can sometimes stimulate root growth and actually boost yield. So less water, way less methane, potentially more rice. It's a huge potential win.
Okay, but climate change hitting rice back, how does that work?
It's very sensitive. Projections differ, but many studies point towards yield decreases for every degree Celsius of warming. Higher nighttime temperatures are a particular problem.
Why night temps?
Because the plant respires more when it's warmer at night, basically burning through the energy it's stored from photosynthesis during the day, leaving less for grain production. This has already been linked to yield stagnation or drops in parts of Asia.
And heat stress during the day, that critical temperature.
Yeah, that's a major worry. If the temperature around the rice flowers goes above 35 degrees Celsius, about 95 Fahrenheit, for more than an hour or so,
Oh.
it can cause sterility. The flowers don't get pollinated properly, crop failure. With more heat waves, that's a serious risk.
We're seeing impacts already, like in Italy.
The sources point to Italy's Po Valley, yeah. Famous for arborio and carnaroli, the risotto rices. Recent droughts have really hammered those harvests.
Are they developing drought-resistant ones?
They are, but it's tricky. One mentioned, Nuevo Promedio, is drought-resistant, but apparently it doesn't have that creamy texture you need for a good risotto. So it's not just about survival, it's about maintaining quality, too.
These challenges really underscore why science and biotech are so vital for rice's future.
Absolutely. And rice is like a model organism for plant science in many ways.
It was the first crop to have its genome sequenced.
Yep, back in 2005, milestone. Since then, hundreds more rice genomes have been sequenced. It helps scientists understand basic plant biology, DNA repair, meiosis, all sorts of fundamental processes.
And applying that knowledge.
Yeah.
The Green Revolution varieties were a huge leap, right? Like IR8.
Massive leap. IR8 developed at the International Rice Research Institute, IRRI, in the 60s. It was a cross between an Indonesian variety and a short Chinese one.
And the key was the short, strong stems.
That was the breakthrough. Older varieties were tall and would lodge fall over if you gave them too much fertilizer. IR8 stood upright so farmers could use more inputs and get much higher yields. Revolutionized production.
Now we're into genetic modification, GM. Golden rice is probably the most famous example.
It is. Engineered to produce beta-carotene, the precursor to vitamin A.
To fight vitamin A deficiency.
That's the goal. It's a major public health problem in areas heavily reliant on rice, causing blindness and other issues, especially in kids.
But it's been controversial.
Extremely. The sources reflect this. There's been significant opposition in places like the Philippines, often based on broader concerns about GM technology, environmental impact, corporate control.
Right.
But then you have the counter-arguments, like over 100 Nobel laureates signing a letter urging governments to allow golden rice, citing its potential humanitarian benefits. It really highlights the complex debate around GM.
It does. What other GM applications are mentioned? Producing human proteins.
Yeah, this is fascinating stuff. A company called Ventria Bioscience developed GM rice that produces human lactoferrin and lysozyme proteins found in breast milk, and also human serum albumin. These proteins have antibacterial, antiviral properties.
What's the potential use?
One idea discussed is incorporating this protein-rich rice into oral rehydration solutions used to treat severe diarrhea, which is a huge killer of infants and young children. The proteins could help fight the infection and maybe even combat associated anemia.
Turning rice into a factory for medicine. Incredible. And biotech is also tackling those stresses. Floods, drought, salt.
Definitely. Flood tolerance. Huge issue. Millions of hectares lost yearly in Asia. Normal rice drowns after about a week.
But there are tolerant varieties now.
Yes. There are conventionally bred ones, like Swarna sub 1, that can take a week or so. And then scuba rice varieties with the specific gene, sub 1A, transferred in that can survive 2 weeks fully submerged. IRI has been distributing these.
Drought tolerance, too. Big problem for rain-fed rice.
Huge. Plants need water to get nutrients. IRI has developed varieties. But there was this cool Japanese research in 2013.
The deeper roots gene.
Exactly. They took a gene called DRO1 from an upland rice variety known for deep roots and put it into IR64, a popular high-yielding variety.
And the result?
Under moderate drought, the modified IR64 with deeper roots only lost 10% of its yield. The original IR64 lost 60%. Massive improvement in resilience just by changing the root structure.
Salt tolerance, crucial for coastal areas, especially with sea level rise.
Major threat. Salt messes up the plant's internal workings. The research mentions this incredible effort to cross edible rice with a wild relative, Oryza corctata, that lives in salty coastal areas and can handle twice the salinity.
But the wild one isn't edible.
Nope. So they had to make a hybrid. And get this, it took 34,000 attempts to get just one viable embryo.
34,000, that's persistence.
Unbelievable. Then they had to use further breeding, back-crossing, to get those salt tolerance genes into a good edible variety. The wild rice even has special glands on its leaves to pump out salt, which they hope to transfer too.
Wow. Cold tolerance is another area.
Yeah, rice doesn't like it below about 12 Celsius.
Oh.
Growth slows, it's more prone to diseases like blast. So breeding for cold tolerance is important for expanding its range and for cooler seasons.
And back to methane. Biotech is tackling that too.
Directly in the plant, yes. This is amazing. Scientists inserted a gene from barley called SUSIBA2.
What does it do?
It changes how the rice plant allocates its resources. It makes it send more energy and biomass up into the shoots and grain, and less down into the roots.
How does that reduce methane?
Fewer resources going to the roots means less exudate feeding the methane-producing microbes in the soil around the roots.
And the result is?
Potentially massive. Reductions of up to 97% in methane emissions in trials, and more grain yield because the energy went there instead.
97% less methane and more food. That sounds almost too good to be true.
It's incredibly promising, really highlights the power of understanding plant genetics. There's also talk of the C4 rice project trying to engineer rice to use the super efficient C4 photosynthesis pathway like corn does. That could boost yields dramatically too.
So science is really pushing the boundaries for this ancient crop.
It has to, given the challenges. But let's not forget, rice is more than just a crop or a scientific subject. It's deeply cultural.
Absolutely. It's woven into traditions everywhere, like weddings.
Yeah, the sources mention Hindu weddings throwing rice for fertility, prosperity, purity, and that likely influenced the Western tradition too.
Malay weddings have special rice dishes. Rice wine is key for celebrations in Japan and the Philippines.
There are deities associated with rice, like Dewi Shri in Indonesia and Malaysia, goddess of rice and fertility.
And ceremonies marking the planting season.
The royal plowing ceremony, yeah. Still a significant cultural event in places like Nepal and Cambodia, marking the start of the rice cycle.
It really shows rice isn't just about calories. It's symbolic, it's spiritual, it's part of the rhythm of life.
For billions of people, absolutely.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. From that tiny wild seed domesticated thousands of years ago, to understanding the plant itself, its huge global scale, the really serious challenges it's up against pests, climate change,
Big ones.
and then these incredible scientific efforts to make it more resilient, more productive, even less polluting, all while being this cultural cornerstone.
It really hammers home just how indispensable this single grain is, feeding more than half the world.
So maybe the next time you encounter rice, think about that incredible journey. From wild grass shaped by human hands over millennia, spreading across the planet.
Now being fine-tuned in labs, sustaining billions.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How will this ancient vital crop keep adapting to a hotter planet, a growing population?
And what other secrets or innovations might it still hold? What comes next for rice? It's a huge question for our shared future.